The events that occurred above Neptune was not an arrival, it was a violation. A seamless, pearlescent vessel, half a kilometer of impossible elegance, tore a wound in spacetime and glided through with the silence of a predator. On the bridge of the orbital station Vigilance, General Eva Rostova watched the readings scroll across her main screen, her face a mask of granite. For an hour, nothing happened. The silence was the first act of psychological warfare. "Still, nothing, General," reported analyst Kenji Tanaka, his voice tight with controlled anxiety. "No energy signatures matching any known weapon system. No heat blooms, no radiation spikes. It's violating a dozen laws of physics just by existing, but it's doing so politely, and it's broadcasting." The message, when it finally came, was delivered in flawlessly translated English. It wasn't a threat, it was a notification, spoken with the calm, detached authority of a cosmic administrator posting an eviction notice. "Greetings, inhabitants of Sol 3. This is Proctor Thale of the Glykon Hegemony. This star system has been designated for restructuring under the Galactic Harmony Initiative. The dominant biosphere on Sol 3, classified as a Class G chaotic anomaly, is scheduled for sterile cleansing in 30 standard solar cycles. We regret any inconvenience." The broadcast looped. A tense, suffocating silence filled the command center. Rostova turned to Dr. Eris Thorne, the station's lead theoretical physicist, a man whose wild gray hair seemed to be a physical manifestation of his thoughts. "Eris, translate. What in the hell is a chaotic anomaly?" Thorne, who had been staring at the screen with a look of terrifying academic fascination, cushed his glasses up his nose. "General, it's worse than being called primitive. Primitives can learn. They're calling us a mistake. An error in the cosmic code. The Glykon are perfectionists, architects of reality. Their technology, their entire philosophy, is built on a foundation of perfect order, predictability, and symmetry. They look at our world, with its chaotic weather, its tangled ecosystems, its messy, unpredictable, emotional inhabitants, and they don't see life. They see a flaw. A beautiful, vibrant, but ultimately unacceptable stain on a perfect canvas. "So, they're going to wipe us out because we don't fit their aesthetic?" Rostova asked, her voice dangerously low. "Precisely," Thorne confirmed, a grim light in his eyes. "And they're so certain of their superiority, so convinced of the righteousness of their cause, that they've given us 30 days' notice, not as an ultimatum to be negotiated, but as a courtesy, like telling a homeowner the demolition date. It is, without a doubt, the single greatest mistake in their long, orderly history." Rostova's knuckles were white as she gripped the edge of the console. They had run war games against a dozen theoretical alien threats. All of them involved invasion, conquest, resource theft. They had never planned for an enemy that wanted to delete them for being an inconvenience. This wasn't a war, it was pest control. "They think we're going to spend the next 30 days panicking," she said, the cold fire in her eyes intensifying. "They expect us to try and build pathetic little evacuation ships, to scramble for a meaningless survival. Let them think that." She activated a private encrypted channel to Earth's unified command, her voice ringing with cold resolve. "Gentlemen, we are initiating Project Misfit. They want to make our world sterile? We're about to show them just how gloriously, terrifyingly messy things can get. If you believe in humanity's power to defy the odds, take a moment to subscribe to Apex Fleet HFY. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life, showing the universe that we will not go quietly into the night." From the serene, silent bridge of his vessel, the harmonious intent, Proctor Thale observed the frantic activity on the third planet. His junior acolyte, a being named Lyra, shimmered beside him. "As you predicted, Proctor, their industrial output is surging. The patterns are consistent with the species attempting to construct primitive interstellar escape craft. Their efforts are commendable in a futile way." "Futility is the final state of all chaotic systems, Lyra," Thale said, his tone that of a patient teacher. "They are playing out their nature. Let them have this small, final act of defiance. It is a mercy." He had no doubt of the outcome. The plan was a millennium old. The harmony of the galaxy was a project that transcended the existence of any single disorderly species. But on Earth, they were not building arcs. In a sprawling subterranean facility deep beneath the Nevada desert, codenamed the Sandbox, the true nature of Project Misfit was taking shape. Dr. Eris Thorne stood before a strange, pulsating sphere of wires and shimmering energy fields, trying to explain the impossible to Commander Jian Li. "Forget everything you know about naval combat, Jian," Thorne said, gesturing wildly. "We can't fight their technology. Their ships don't have shields in any sense we understand. They bend space-time to let attacks pass through them. They don't fire lasers. They manipulate reality to erase matter from existence. Trying to shoot them is like trying to punch a ghost with a cannonball." Jian Li, a woman whose preternatural calm had been tested in a dozen combat drops, folded her arms. Her expression was unreadable. "So, what's the plan, Doctor? Are we going to try and outthink a god?" Wide, manic grins split Thorne's face. "Better. We're going to give it a migraine. We're going to throw chaos at it." Their entire system, from their FTL drives to their life support, relies on perfect, predictable, symmetrical physics. They have mastered order. But we, Dion, we were born from chaos. We are its children. This, he pointed to the sphere, is an asymmetry drive. "It doesn't generate power?" Jian asked, her brow furrowing. "No, that's the sublime beauty of it. It doesn't create anything so crude as energy. It creates unpredictability. It actively injects microscopic, chaotic, and fundamentally illogical fluctuations into the fabric of space-time. To our crude, robust technology, it's just background noise, a cosmic static we can easily filter. But to their perfectly balanced crystalline systems, it's a poison, a logic bomb delivered to the very soul of the universe." Jian's gaze shifted to the ship waiting in the cavernous hangar, the UEA Misfit. It was an old Terran destroyer, ugly and brutally functional, stripped bare and packed to the brim with generators whose sole purpose was to power Thorne's strange device. Her mission wasn't to fight. It was to get close to the Glykon fleet and simply be present. "You're telling me," she said slowly, the full weight of the mission settling upon her, "that I'm going to fly up to a fleet of reality-warping god ships and flip a switch?" "Yes," Thorne said, his eyes gleaming with the fire of a true believer. "And you will give them a taste of the one thing their perfect models cannot account for: a rounding error with an attitude." Her training was grueling. In the simulator, she wasn't fighting ships. She was fighting for her own sanity. When the simulated asymmetry drive was active, the star field on her screen would ripple. Her instruments would flicker with impossible readings. The simulation fed her false sensory data, the smell of ozone layers, the feeling of a phantom acceleration, the sound of whispers just at the edge of hearing. It was designed to mimic the psychic noise the drive would create. For weeks, she crashed. Disoriented, vertiginous, she couldn't hold a steady course. But Jian Li was chosen for a reason. She learned not to fight the chaos, but to flow with it. She learned to trust her gut over her instruments, to navigate by instinct when logic failed. She learned to be the calm center of a storm of unreality. Aboard the Harmonious Intent, Proctor Thale reviewed the final pre-cleansing checklist. The humans' escape craft were noted, their frantic radio chatter logged. All was proceeding according to plan. He felt a sliver of something an emotional species might call sadness. It was a shame to erase such a spirited anomaly, but harmony required sacrifice. "The 30-cycle grace period has concluded," Thale announced, his voice echoing through the pristine bridge. "Begin the primary sterilization sequence. Target the planet's major biocenters first." The teardrop-shaped ships of the Glykon fleet moved into a perfect, crystalline formation around Earth. They began to glow, the space around them shimmering as they prepared to make a world. They didn't even notice the single ugly human ship accelerating towards them from the dark side of the moon. On their screens, it was a ghost, a flicker, a piece of insignificant debris. This is the moment of truth. If you're ready to see human ingenuity turn the tables on gods, hit that like button. Let the algorithm know that order is about to meet chaos. Commander Jian Li's hands were steady on the controls of the Misfit. Alarms blared as she flew directly into the shimmering distortion fields forming around the Glykon fleet. Her ship groaned, old plates protesting as reality warped around them. But its systems were simple, robust, and shielded by brute force. It was a hammer flying into a symphony. "Distortion effects are off the charts, but she's holding. We are in range, Commander," her tactical officer reported, his voice a tight cord of tension. "Do it, Doctor," Jian said into the comm, her voice a calm island in a sea of alarms. From his bunker in Nevada, Aerith's Thorn slammed a large red and deeply satisfying button. "Chaos is on the wind," he yelled at the ceiling. Aboard the Misfit, the asymmetry drive roared to life. It didn't make a sound, it didn't fire a beam, but suddenly, across millions of cubic kilometers, the fundamental constants of the universe got a little bit fuzzy. On the bridge of the Glykon flagship, the single pure musical note that represented all systems nominal suddenly wavered, developing a discordant vibrato. A static flicker, like a dying star, ran through the holographic displays. Proctor Thale tilted his head, an expression of mild annoyance on his perfect features. "Report," he commanded. "Unidentified quantum fluctuations, Proctor," his sensor tech stammered, tapping frantically at his console. "Space-time metrics are becoming unstable. The mathematical bedrock is shifting. The models are not conforming." The serene glow around the Glykon ships began to stutter violently. One of the smaller vessels vanished, then reappeared a few kilometers to its left, its perfect pearlescent hull now flickering between states of matter. The crew on the bridge watched in horror as the corridor outside their viewport looped back on itself in an impossible curve. "What is the source?" Thale demanded, a threat of something cold and unfamiliar, alarm entering his voice for the first time. "It appears to be the primitive human vessel, Proctor. But it's impossible. It is emitting no coherent energy. It is polluting reality. It's making the universe noisy." Jian Li watched in silent awe as the perfect orderly Glykon fleet fell apart. Their reality-working fields, which required absolute precision down to the Planck length, began to fail catastrophically. One ship's bow folded in on itself like a piece of paper. Another stern stretched into an impossible noodle of matter before snapping back with a silent, devastating release of energy. Their internal light flickered. Their gravity systems failed, then reversed, then failed again, sending their perfectly ordered crews tumbling through their perfectly designed corridors. The Glykon had never conceived of such an attack. It wasn't warfare. It was vandalism on a cosmic scale. Their systems weren't being overpowered. They were being confused to death. The steady, pure music of their bridge dissolved into a cacophony of shrieking, illogical alarms. "Proctor, we have cascading system failures across the fleet," the tech cried out, his voice cracking. "Our navigation is unreliable. Our structural integrity fields are failing. The harmony is breaking." Proctor Thale stared at the lone human ship, the Misfit, sitting defiantly in the middle of his disintegrating fleet. It wasn't attacking. It was just being. Being messy, being unpredictable, being human. And in a moment of terrible clarity that shattered his entire worldview, he finally understood. They weren't fighting a primitive species. They were fighting a fundamental principle of the universe they had tried to ignore. He had tried to erase a chaotic anomaly, and the chaos was now erasing him. "Retreat," he whispered, the word tasting like ash, the sound of utter defeat. "All ships, retreat, disengage and retreat." But retreating was a precise, orderly maneuver, and in the storm of unpredictability generated by the Misfit, precision was a forgotten dream. More ships were lost in the panicked, clumsy attempts to escape than would have been lost in a conventional battle, their FTL drives failing to engage properly and tearing them apart. As the surviving Glykon ships limped away, scarred and fundamentally broken, a new message was broadcast from Proctor Thale's flagship. It wasn't addressed to Earth's governments. It was a frantic, fleet-wide, hegemony-wide reclassification order. "Designation Sol 3, his shaken voice announced, "is hereby reclassified. Status changed from Class G Chaotic Anomaly to Class Omega Keystone. Nature, a fundamental and necessary agent of cosmic instability, a source of irreducible reality static. Approach with extreme caution. Do not engage, do not interfere. Observe only." On the bridge of the Misfit, Jian Li watched the last enemy vessel tear a ragged hole in spacetime and vanish. Her ugly little ship had won a war without firing a single shot. General Rostova's voice crackled over the comm, filled with a pride that echoed across a relieved planet. "Jian, Aris, you did it! You showed them!" Jian leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face as she looked at the image of her beautiful, messy, gloriously imperfect blue-green world on the main screen. "General," she replied, her voice steady, "we just reminded them that the universe doesn't always follow the rules." Humanity was still here, messy, unpredictable, and now a force to be reckoned with. Not because of its power, but because of its glorious, defiant, and now proven to be essential imperfection. The Glykon wanted to erase humanity for being a chaotic anomaly. In the end, which was our greatest weapon? What do you think is humanity's most underrated strength? The one quality that other species would never see coming? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one.